Okay, welcome back to our knee pain when running series. This is part 2, and in this episode I want to cover the very controversial topic of insoles. So sort of titled this episode, Knee Pain When Running, Do I Need Insoles to Solve It? And the short answer to that is no, and I want to tell you why that is. Don't get me wrong, foot function, foot strength and foot mobility is very, very important when it comes to running, and even more important when it comes to running if you have an injury and if you have something like knee pain. And it definitely shouldn't be overlooked, but we definitely shouldn't jump to a pair of insoles to solve that. And as I said, this topic is controversial, and the reason why I say that is because there's so much mixed research out there. You're going to read different things online, you're going to get advice from different rehab professionals, you're going to get advice from people who wear insoles themselves, you're going to get advice from people who have tried insoles, you're going to get advice from people who have maybe had their gait analysis done, or those who are providing gait analysis in sports shoe shops. So there's loads of people out there that have loads of different opinions, if they worked for them, if they didn't work for them. What I want to address more specifically here is using insoles for running and using insoles when you're running with knee pain. And all I want to do here is get you thinking, get you understanding things a little bit more, understanding what insoles do, understanding what insoles do not do, and then you can maybe make that decision for yourself with a little bit more education on your side. So before you think I'm completely against insoles, I think it's important for you to know that I have had insoles in the past myself. My husband wears insoles in certain shoes. We have clients that come to us with insoles, and we have other clients who I've personally referred out to get insoles made. So I'm definitely not against insoles. I do believe that they have a place, but I'm here to tell you that they are not going to be the thing to fix your knee pain if you're a runner. You see, there's a few problems that I have with insoles. Number one, they are incredibly expensive. That £400 that you could spend on a pair of insoles could buy you a very, very good rehab assessment and full treatment plan with a good physio. And secondly, this is similar to my opinion of sort of knee braces and knee straps. They're often papering over a crack rather than addressing the root cause of the problem. You're maybe just putting a bit of a plaster over the area, hoping for the best, and then as soon as that insole comes out of the shoe, you're right back to square one again. And lastly, but probably most importantly, how your feet function when you're in static standing, how your feet function when you go to lift a weight off the ground, how your feet function when you're walking, and how your feet function when you're running is all very, very different. So I find it hard to understand how one insole is going to cover you for all of the things that you need to achieve in life in terms of how your foot functions in each of those activities, particularly in running if you're running with knee pain. If you've been running for a while and you've never really considered insoles and you're really only considering them now because you have knee pain, it's very likely that you don't need them. Where insoles can be really beneficial for people is whenever they have structural changes in their feet or structural problems with their feet that really need address. And these people have likely picked up on that long ago, probably when they were in their early teens, when they were trying out different sports, different types of shoes, starting to run, all of those things. If you haven't picked it up by now and you've been running for years and this is the first time you've thought about it, as I said, you likely do not need them to fix this knee pain. Now, one thing that does really grind my gears when it comes to insoles is when insoles are given out for a case of mild pronation at the foot. And you might have been told this yourself. You might be told that you're overpronating, you might be told that you have flat feet, and as a result, you need insoles. And to be quite honest with you, that was me. I was the person giving out that advice. When I first started in physio, I was giving out insoles left, right, and center. As soon as I saw a pronated foot, I ran for the nearest pair of insoles and gave them to them because I thought that was going to fix everything. If someone came to me with knee pain and they were a runner and they had flat feet, I immediately thought, well, that must be what's going on. We put an insole in there. A couple of months down the line, symptoms started to reduce, that person returned to running and the pain was right back to square one again. But of course, I never blamed the insoles. I thought it couldn't possibly be them. They definitely need them. They've got that pronated foot. And it's only really in the recent years that I've started to acknowledge that not all these people could really need insoles. And that's whenever I started to look at the foot more clearly. I started to look at the gait pattern more clearly. And I started to understand how the foot's importance to running and why it's really important that we treat it like we would do any other structure in the body. Because the reality was, for that person that I was giving insoles to if they were a runner with knee pain, I was never actually addressing the true cause for their knee pain. I was looking past that. I was papering over the crack and giving them something that was giving them that short-term symptom relief until their load demands got higher. And then, as I said, they went back to square one with their pain. Those insoles were never going to fix their knee pain. In terms of getting the root cause of that person's knee pain and actually figuring out what was going on that we needed to solve at the source in order for them to get better, I covered that in part 1 of our knee pain and running series, so I'd recommend you go and check that out and then come back and continue watching this one. And thankfully now, after working with hundreds of runners with knee pain and lots of those runners having flat feet with their knee pain, I can confidently say that Insoles did not fix their knee pain. You see, now when someone comes to me and if they've got knee pain when running and they have flatter feet, I have a bit of a checklist that I'll work through with them in both their assessment and their treatment plan to make sure that we are covering everything. So the first thing that I'll be looking for with them is, even though they are in pronation, so even though they have flattened feet, are they able to get into supination? And this is really, really important. When their shin rotates, are they able to get an arch into their foot, and can they actually access supination? If they can't, we're going to work on that. That's going to be part of their treatment plan. We're going to look and see, have they got the ability to get into supination, and can we strengthen them in that position? The second thing, and a really important thing that I'll look for, is when they are in pronation, so when they are maybe in their natural foot position, can they generate force there? Are they strong there? Do they have the ability to push the ground away when they're running and absorb force through that part of their foot? And if the answer to that is no, we are going to be working a lot on foot intent. We're going to be working a lot on strengthening that foot, and we're going to be working loads on trying to produce power from that foot. And lastly, I'll be looking at that big question of, does their knee pain actually come on when they go into pronation? So this is a really nice drill to try to actually just help to educate someone. Are they actually getting pain on pronation, and help them to understand that actually their knee pain maybe isn't being caused because of this. So quite often what I'll do is get them to come into a little bit of supination in their foot and let their foot go into pronation. If they get an exacerbation of their symptoms, then we're going to work on addressing that and desensitizing that. But 99.9% of the time, none of their knee pain will come on, and we can move past the fact that the pronation is not causing their knee pain. So what does this checklist actually mean for insoles? Well, if we sort of work through that, checking if they're able to get into supination, checking if they're able to produce power from the pronated position, and checking if pronation actually brings on their knee pain. If we were to put an insole into that person's shoe and we were to put an arch, essentially an artificial arch around that person's foot, number one, we're not giving them the ability to access supination themselves because they're just going to be forced into it. Number two, it's actually going to lead to that foot becoming more deconditioned and becoming weaker because we're not going to be producing loads through a pronated foot because we've got an artificial arch in the shoe. And number three, we're never actually going to be able to see, well, is it the pronation that's causing the knee pain? As soon as that person takes the insole out and they go into pronation again, that knee pain is going to come just back again, and we never actually were able to desensitize it. So what I'm trying to say is that insole is never going to solve their inability to supinate. It's never going to solve their inability to reduce force through a pronated foot. And it's also never going to address the true problem if pronation does cause knee pain. Because as I said, as soon as that insole comes out, they're going to go into pronation and that knee pain will come back again. And to be honest, I have been there myself. I've experienced the pain that you can get pre and post insoles. I was given insoles because I have flatter feet. I've had an old knee surgery. There was a risk that I could potentially have picked up further knee pain. So it was suggested to me that I would put insoles into my shoes. When I first put them on, they felt great. They felt really comfy. I felt really nice and supported. They fitted in my shoe really well. Walking around was no problem at all. I wore them during work. And then I thought, okay, this is going to really help me with running. This is going to make me a stronger runner because that's what I've been taught. And I thought, perfect, I'm going to go out for a run. And then I started to wear them playing hockey. And all of a sudden, I actually started to develop knee pain. I actually started to develop back pain. Now, did my mind instantly jump to the insoles? Definitely not. I thought, oh, there's no way. They're the good thing. They're actually the thing that's coming in here to prevent me getting further knee pain and getting further back pain. But actually, in reality, as soon as I took those insoles out and I continued playing hockey without them, I continued running without them, I had no knee pain and I had no back pain. Now, this is not me saying that you're going to put an insole in your shoe and you're immediately going to be riddled with niggles and injuries. That is not the case for everybody. But what happened for me and what can happen for a lot of people is actually that insole changed how I ran. That insole completely changed my running mechanics, completely changed my load distribution. And as a result, I couldn't actually pronate my foot. And that's a really key part of running, and that is super important for people to understand. We have to go from supination to pronation when we run and generate force from a pronated position to fire up certain muscle groups like our soleus muscle, like our calf muscle, our hamstring muscle, our posterior chain, to then make us run further, help us to run faster, and help us produce force from the ground. So as soon as that insole went in, it completely took away that ability for me because I was stuck in supination, and it completely changed how I ran, and as a result I actually started to pick up further pain and niggles. So what's my advice to you if you're currently running and you've got knee pain and you're wondering if insoles would be helpful for you? Well, if you are concerned about maybe having structural deformities around the feet, I would recommend that you go and get it checked out, because there's absolutely no harm in getting that assessed. But if you're only considering insoles because your friend down the road had a pair and they really worked for them, or maybe you were told at the run club that actually these can be really helpful for running, or maybe they popped up in your Instagram ads, whatever the case might be, I would strongly consider these 3 things before you invest in a pair. The first thing would be understanding and acknowledging the gait pattern. And what I mean by that is understanding the running pattern, understanding how your foot functions in that running pattern. And what you will find from there is a new appreciation for pronation, and you might start to understand that flat feet aren't all bad. If you need help with this, just drop me a message, drop me an email, drop a comment below, and I'll send you over a training that I have for our clients, which teaches them all about the gait cycle and helps them to understand the foot a little bit better. Secondly, work on the ability to both supinate and pronate the foot. Arch the foot and splay the foot, 2 really important functions. If you're stuck in a splayed, flattened foot position, then you might need to learn to arch, and vice versa. So have a look at your foot, see if you turn your shin from side to side, can you actually get an arch and splay around the foot, and try to work on strengthening up that area. And lastly, and probably the most important one, start to strengthen your foot. Start to have better foot intent. Learn to push through your midfoot. Learn how to fire up certain muscle groups by utilizing your feet. Don't neglect them. Don't ignore them. They're so important to running. They're the first point of contact when we are running. They're taking an awful lot of force, and it's through the feet that we have force distribution right up into the lower limbs. So we need to be good at loading through our feet, tolerating forces through our feet, and producing forces through our feet. Having a foot that functions well is key to solving knee pain, but unfortunately, an insole isn't going to do that for you.